Good morning, Fairfield Christian. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend, fall break, a 4-day weekend. Hope you guys had a chance to spend time with your families over this 4-day weekend. Like I asked you guys to, family is very important. It's important we maintain those good relationships with our family. So we're back at school now, Monday morning, and of course we have a new scripture memorization verse. So we're getting back into it, and we're on to a new attribute of God this week as well. This week we're learning how God is holy. Now we're not talking about my socks. My socks are sometimes holy, but for a very different reason. No, we're talking about a different type of holy. This type of holy can be defined as being set apart. In fact, many times I've asked students in my classes how to define holy, and that's what they say, to be set apart. But it actually means even more than that, because really, you can set a lot of things apart. For example, let's say I'm eating dinner, and my wife puts tomatoes in the dinner. Well, I'm not a fan of tomatoes, so I might pull the tomatoes out and set my tomatoes apart. Now, they're separated from everything else, but is that what we're talking about when we're talking about holiness? You know, setting our tomatoes apart, or just setting it apart, making it different? Not completely. What we're really talking about is setting apart from sin, and that's the most important thing, because holiness and sin are mutually exclusive. Now for you little kids, those are some pretty big words that are kind of hard to understand. But you older kids will understand there are two things that are completely separate. One cannot be with the other. They have to be completely separate. If you are holy, you are completely separate and set apart from sin. And that's the way God is. Now this verse that we're talking about this week, it's in the book of Leviticus. Now Leviticus is probably a book that most of you have not spent a lot of time in. It's a difficult book to read. It's the main portion of the law that God gave to Moses, who then in turn gave it to the Israelites. There's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, but it's a very important book of the Bible. Now all the books of the Bible are important, but this one in particular, because it is the majority of the law that God gave to Moses, and the law that eventually Jesus would fulfill through his life, it's important that we understand the concepts and principles in the book of Leviticus. And one of the major themes in the book of Leviticus is holiness. And over the next several weeks, we're going to be looking at this idea of God being holy. So hopefully you guys are going to be talking about that in your classes throughout the week. And each subsequent week in chapel, we'll be talking about holiness. But this week in particular, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2, it says, "You must be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy." So God describes himself as holy, and he wants his people who follow him to also be holy. Because really that's the only way we can be with God, is to be holy like God. If holiness and sin are completely separate, and we have sin, that's why we have to be separated from God, because God is holy and God cannot be anywhere that sin is. So that's why we get separated from God, because God is holy, we're sinful, and it's only through the salvation of Jesus Christ, through his salvation in our lives, that we're able to be covered, that sin is able to be covered. We can be considered righteous, which then we can then enter into the presence of God. So holiness is a really big deal. So like I said, we're going to be talking about more of that this week and over the next several weeks. So this is going to be a difficult set of verses to memorize, but it's a very important set of verses to memorize and talk about and understand. All right, hope you guys have a fantastic week. I'll see you guys around campus. God bless.